My wicked mother-in-law, Doris, sabotaged my chemo treatment and turned my life into a living nightmare. At 30 years old, I'm grappling with more issues than I can count, and Doris tops the list. What makes everything worse is that I'm battling cancer for the second time in my life. The first diagnosis hit me when I was just 14, but I fought bravely and managed to overcome it. Life had been calm and peaceful since then, until a routine health check at work turned my world upside down. At 30, I found myself facing cancer again. This time, it was a secondary cancer in a different organ, entirely unrelated to my previous illness. Though it was only at stage 2, my oncologist warned me of its aggressive nature, emphasizing the need for swift action to prevent it from escalating to stage 3 or beyond. The news was a crushing blow, feeling like a relentless force was determined to see me defeated. After undergoing surgery, I was set to begin chemotherapy. The doctors prescribed oral chemo, which I could take at home, requiring hospital visits only for periodic blood tests and scans. This arrangement was a relief, as daily hospital visits would have been too taxing. I'm currently on sick leave from work, and the treatment has left me significantly weakened and noticeably thinner. Before this, my wife Emily and I shared household chores equally. Nowadays, my energy levels are erratic, with some days being better than others. However, immediately after each chemo session, even the simplest tasks become overwhelming. Despite my efforts to contribute, Emily has been incredibly understanding, reassuring me that my sole focus should be on my recovery. One afternoon, Doris visited, fully aware of my diagnosis. I was lounging on the couch trying to rest, while Emily was doing household tasks. Doris approached me with a distasteful look, exclaiming, "Look at you, lounging around as if you're on vacation. Aren't you ashamed, a grown man lying down in the middle of the day while your poor wife works like a slave?" I explained to her how I had just had chemo and wasn't fit to do any work. She scoffed at me and said, "You can't cure yourself with those toxic chemicals. Only natural products work." Later, Doris cornered Emily in the kitchen. Though I didn't intend to eavesdrop, I couldn't help but overhear their conversation. Doris ranted, "You shouldn't let him take that poison, it's killing him. If it wasn't toxic, he wouldn't feel so awful. Doctors today are clueless. You need to try herbal treatments instead." Emily, recognizing Doris's ignorance, quickly shut her down, warning her to stay out of matters she didn't understand. The following day, it was time for my scheduled chemo dose. I preferred taking it in the morning to feel better by evening and sleep more comfortably. However, when I opened the bathroom cabinet, my chemo bottles were missing. Surprised, I asked Emily if she had moved them, but she hadn't. We searched everywhere, but it was clear they hadn't just fallen out. We had no children or pets, so there was no reason to hide them. Then Emily recalled that Doris had used the bathroom before leaving the previous day. Given her rant about chemo's toxicity, it dawned on us that Doris might have taken the bottles. Emily was enraged. She stormed out, heading straight to Doris's house. When she returned about half an hour later, she was still fuming. Doris had indeed taken my chemo and admitted to throwing it out, believing she was doing me a favor. Doris argued, "Can't you see he's dying? It's not the cancer, it's those pills. I saved him. You should be thanking me and buying him herbal teas." Due to Doris's interference, I missed a crucial dose of chemo, which is extremely detrimental. I had to see my oncologist immediately. When I explained the situation, he was incredulous. He asked what happened to the chemo he gave me, and I had to tell him the reality of the situation. He looked at me as if I had told him the most absurd story. Nonetheless, he prescribed new bottles and a revised schedule for my treatment. Now we store my medication in a locked cabinet. Emily has vowed that Doris will never set foot in our home again. As I continue my treatment, I am determined to stay focused. Each day brings new challenges, but the turmoil caused by Doris's interference is something we could have never anticipated. The physical toll of chemotherapy is immense, but dealing with Doris's meddling adds a layer of stress that's almost unbearable. A few days after the incident, Doris showed up unannounced at our doorstep. She was clutching a bag filled with various herbs and teas, insisting they were the cure I needed. Emily, seeing red, refused to let her in. Doris stood outside, shouting about how we were ungrateful and that I was going to die if I continued the toxic treatment. The commotion drew the attention of our neighbors, adding to the embarrassment and stress. We decided it was time to take action. Emily and I sat down and wrote a formal letter warning Doris to stay away from our home and to stop interfering with my treatment. We hoped this would be enough to deter her, but we underestimated her determination. The next week, while Emily was out running errands, Doris somehow managed to sneak into the house. I was in the bedroom, too weak to get up, when I heard the sound of cupboards opening and closing. By the time I made it to the kitchen, she had already rifled through our medicine cabinet. She had taken all the new chemo bottles and was about to leave when I confronted her. She yelled at me, insisting I was killing myself, and that she was saving my life. In my weakened state, I could barely argue. She stormed out, taking the medication with her. When Emily returned, she found me distraught and the house in disarray. This was the final straw. We called the police and filed a report. They took our statement and assured us they would handle it. Doris's actions had crossed the line into criminal behavior, and we were determined to protect my health and our sanity. The police visited Doris's house, and she denied everything, claiming she was only trying to help. However, with our detailed account and previous warnings, they issued her a formal restraining order. Doris was furious, and the situation escalated further. She began a campaign against us within the family, painting herself as a concerned mother, only looking out for her son-in-law's best interests, while we were portrayed as ungrateful and stubborn. The stress from these family conflicts started to impact my health more severely. My oncologist noticed the change and advised that I minimize any stressors in my life. Emily decided to cut all communication with her mother, a heartbreaking but necessary decision to ensure my health and safety. This decision wasn't easy, and it took a toll on her emotionally. She loved her mother despite everything and hoped that someday there could be reconciliation, but not at the cost of my well-being. But Doris was relentless. She began contacting my workplace, spreading lies about my health and claiming that I was a danger to myself and others. She insisted that my mental state was compromised due to the chemotherapy and that I needed to be fired for my good. This interference jeopardized my sick leave benefits, causing additional stress and financial strain on us. We sought legal advice and were told to gather all evidence of her harassment and to pursue legal action for defamation and harassment. This legal battle was draining both emotionally and financially. Each day brought new challenges, and while the legal process moved forward, Doris's antics did not cease. She started sending letters and packages filled with alternative medicines and pamphlets on natural healing to our home. We had to screen our mail and change our phone numbers to prevent her from reaching us. Despite the restraining order, she found ways to bypass legal restrictions, further demonstrating her obsession with controlling my treatment. The emotional toll was immense. We decided to temporarily move to a different location, staying with a trusted friend while we sorted things out. This move, though disruptive, provided a much-needed respite from Doris's relentless harassment. In the safety of our friend's home, we could focus on my treatment without the constant fear of Doris's interference. While staying with our friend, we had time to reflect on our situation. We realized that our primary focus had to be my health and well-being, and that meant taking drastic measures to cut Doris out of our lives completely. Emily decided to send a final clear message to her mother that any further interference would result in severe legal consequences. As we settled into our new temporary home, my health slowly began to improve. The stability and absence of constant stress made a noticeable difference. I could focus on my treatment, follow the doctor's orders meticulously, and even start to regain some strength. But the drama was far from over. Doris, determined as ever, somehow found out where we were staying. She began showing up at our friend's house demanding to see us. Our friend, a no-nonsense type of person, threatened to call the police if she didn't leave. Doris's desperation was evident. She was losing control, and it was driving her to more erratic behavior. One day, as we were returning from a hospital visit, we found Doris waiting outside our friend's house. She was screaming obscenities, demanding that we listen to her. It was the final straw. Our friend called the police, and this time they took her away for violating the restraining order. We pressed charges, hoping this would be enough to finally end her harassment. The court proceedings were long and grueling. Doris played the victim, insisting she was only trying to help, but the evidence against her was overwhelming. The court ruled in our favor, extending the restraining order and mandating that she undergo psychological evaluation and counseling. It was a small victory in a long, tiring battle. With Doris legally bound to stay away, we finally began to rebuild our lives. We were at peace, and my health continued to improve. Emily and I grew closer, our bond strengthened by the trials we had faced together. We resumed our routines, cautiously optimistic about the future. Despite the chaos Doris had caused, we found moments of joy and hope. My health gradually improved, and we started to plan for a future free from her interference. We reconnected with supportive family members and friends who had distanced themselves due to the drama. Their understanding and support provided a much-needed sense of normalcy. Just as we thought things were settling down, a new twist emerged. Doris managed to recruit some extended family members to her cause. They started calling and visiting us, trying to convince us to reconcile with her. Their arguments were filled with guilt-tripping and emotional manipulation, claiming that Doris's actions were out of love and concern. One cousin in particular was relentless. He showed up at our doorstep, insisting that we were tearing the family apart and that we needed to forgive Doris. His aggressive stance was overwhelming, and his presence brought back all the stress we had been trying to escape. Emily, fed up with the constant barrage, finally told him off, explaining the extent of Doris's interference and the harm it had caused. But the family pressure didn't stop there. Doris's siblings began to take her side, accusing us of being ungrateful and disrespectful. They started spreading rumors within the family, painting us as villains who had turned our backs on Doris in her time of need. The family gatherings we once looked forward to became sources of tension and conflict. We decided to take a more drastic step. We moved to a different city, seeking a fresh start away from the toxic family dynamics. The move was challenging, but it brought a sense of relief and a chance to rebuild our lives in peace. My health continued to improve in the new environment, free from the constant stress and interference. In our new city, we found a supportive community and began to establish new friendships. Emily found a job she loved, and I continued my treatment with a new medical team. The sense of normalcy and stability was a blessing, and we cherished the quiet moments together. However, the shadow of Doris's actions still lingered. We remained cautious, always on the lookout for any signs of her interference. Despite the distance, she continued to find ways to reach out, using social media and other family members to send messages. We ignored them, focusing on our healing and well-being. One day, we received a letter from Doris, claiming she had changed and was seeking forgiveness. She wrote about her regrets and how she had undergone counseling to understand her actions. Emily and I were skeptical, given the history of manipulation and deceit. We discussed the possibility of reconciliation, but decided it was too soon to trust her words. As my health stabilized, I began to reflect on the journey we had been through. The battles with cancer and Doris's interference had tested us in ways we never imagined, but it also brought us closer, revealing the strength of our bond and our resilience. We learned to prioritize our well-being and to protect our peace, no matter the cost. The journey was far from over, but with each passing day, we moved further away from the chaos Doris had inflicted on our lives. Emily and I vowed to protect our peace and well-being, no matter the cost. We had faced incredible adversity and emerged stronger, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead together. In the end, this experience reinforced our belief in the power of love and support. We continued to build a life filled with hope and joy, despite the shadows of the past. Our journey taught us the importance of setting boundaries and standing up for ourselves, even in the face of relentless opposition. Several months passed, and my health continued to show improvement. The regular chemo sessions, though grueling, were starting to show positive results. The tumors were shrinking, and my energy levels were gradually returning. It felt like we were finally seeing the light at the end of a very long tunnel. Then one day, we received a call from the police. Doris had been arrested for trespassing and harassment. She had been caught sneaking into the hospital where I was receiving treatment, trying to access my medical records. The hospital staff, aware of our situation, had called the authorities. This was the final straw. We decided to press charges, hoping that this would finally put an end to her relentless interference. The court case was intense. Doris once again played the victim, insisting she was only trying to help. But this time, the evidence was overwhelming. The hospital staff testified about her attempts to access my records, and the police presented a history of her harassment. The judge was not sympathetic. Doris was found guilty of harassment and trespassing, and was sentenced to community service and mandatory counseling. The restraining order was extended indefinitely. This legal victory was a significant relief. For the first time in months, we felt a sense of security. We could focus on my recovery without the constant fear of Doris's interference. Emily and I took this opportunity to strengthen our relationship, focusing on the positive aspects of our lives and planning for the future. However, the aftermath of the court case brought new challenges. Doris's actions had caused a rift in the family. Some family members who had previously supported us began to distance themselves, unable to reconcile the image of the loving mother with the reality of her actions. Others continued to support Doris, blaming us for the family's division. This new dynamic was difficult to navigate, but we remained steadfast in our decision to protect our peace. As my health continued to improve, we decided to take a long-awaited vacation. We traveled to a peaceful seaside town, far away from the memories of our recent struggles. The fresh air, the sound of the waves, and the serene environment provided a much-needed respite. We spent our days exploring the town, enjoying the local cuisine, and simply relaxing. It was a time of healing and rejuvenation, a reminder that life could be beautiful despite the challenges. Upon our return, we found that the distance had helped to mend some family relationships. A few relatives reached out, offering apologies and expressing their support. These gestures, though small, were meaningful. We appreciated the efforts to rebuild trust and mend the broken bonds. However, we remained cautious. Doris's previous actions had taught us to be vigilant. We maintained the restraining order and continued to screen our mail and calls. Trust, once broken, is difficult to rebuild, and we were determined to protect our newfound peace. As the months turned into a year, my health continued to improve. The cancer was in remission, and I was gradually returning to a semblance of normalcy. Emily and I celebrated this victory with a quiet dinner, reflecting on the journey we had been through. The trials and tribulations had tested us in ways we never imagined, but they had also brought us closer, strengthening our bond and our resolve. Just when we thought we had left the worst behind, a new and unexpected challenge emerged. One evening, we received an urgent call from Emily's aunt, who informed us that Doris had suffered a serious health issue and was in the hospital. Despite everything she had done, Emily felt a bit of concern and guilt, torn between her duty as a daughter and her need to protect our peace. She decided to visit her mother in the hospital. The visit was tense and emotional. Doris, frail and vulnerable, seemed to have softened. She apologized tearfully for her actions, claiming that her fear and misunderstanding had driven her to such extremes. Emily, always compassionate, felt conflicted. Could her mother's remorse be genuine, or was it another ploy to regain control? We decided to proceed cautiously. Emily maintained limited contact with Doris, visiting her occasionally and ensuring she was receiving proper care. However, we made it clear that any further interference in our lives would not be tolerated. Doris seemed to accept these terms, and for a while, there was a fragile peace. But as Doris's health improved, so did her old habits. She began to subtly criticize things about me again, albeit in a more subdued manner. Emily and I had to constantly remind her of the boundaries we had set. The stress began to take its toll once more, and we realized that the cycle of manipulation was starting again. To find a permanent solution, we sought the help of a family therapist. The therapist worked with us to establish firmer boundaries and provided strategies for dealing with Doris's behavior. It was a challenging process, but it gave us the tools we needed to manage the situation more effectively. Despite these efforts, Doris's behavior continued to fluctuate. Some days she was contrite and cooperative, while other days she reverted to her old manipulative tactics. The unpredictability was exhausting, and we had to make a difficult decision. For the sake of my health and our well-being, we chose to cut off contact with Doris completely. The decision was not easy, and it came with a heavy emotional burden. Emily mourned the loss of her relationship with her mother, but she knew it was necessary to protect our peace. We focused on healing and moving forward, building a life free from the chaos that had plagued us for so long. As time passed, the wounds began to heal. We found joy in the small moments, celebrating each milestone and cherishing our time together. My health continued to improve, and we embraced the future with hope and determination. Then one day we received a letter from Doris, claiming she had changed and was seeking forgiveness. She wrote about her regrets and how she had undergone counseling to understand her actions. Emily and I were skeptical, given the history of manipulation and deceit. We discussed the possibility of reconciliation, but decided it was too soon to trust her words. As my health stabilized, I began to reflect on the journey we had been through. The battles with cancer and Doris's interference had tested us in ways we never imagined, but it also brought us closer, revealing the strength of our bond and our resilience. We learned to prioritize our well-being and to protect our peace, no matter the cost. The journey was far from over, but with each passing day, we moved further away from the chaos Doris had inflicted on our lives. Emily and I vowed to protect our peace and well-being, no matter the cost. We had faced incredible adversity and emerged stronger, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead together. In the end, this experience reinforced our belief in the power of love and support. We continued to build a life filled with hope and joy, despite the shadows of the past. Our journey taught us the importance of setting boundaries and standing up for ourselves, even in the face of relentless opposition. As the months turned into years, my health continued to improve, and Emily and I found ourselves growing even closer. The trials we had faced together strengthened our bond, making us more resilient. Despite the challenges, we found a rhythm in our new life. Emily excelled in her job, and I slowly regained my strength, returning to work part-time. The support from our new friends and community was overwhelming, reminding us that kindness and compassion still existed in the world. We celebrated every small victory, from clear scans to simply having the energy to enjoy a day out together. Our peace was occasionally disrupted by distant family members influenced by Doris, but we remained firm in our boundaries. Each attempt at manipulation was met with calm resilience, and we never wavered in our commitment to protect our well-being. The strength we found in each other was unshakable. One day, as we were preparing dinner, Emily received a call from an unknown number. Hesitant but curious, she answered. It was Doris, her voice trembling with emotion. She apologized once again, claiming she had changed and was desperate to make amends. Emily listened quietly, but her face remained stoic. After the call ended, we discussed it thoroughly. We both knew trust was a fragile thing, easily broken, but hard to rebuild. Emily decided to meet Doris in a public place to gauge her sincerity. The meeting was tense but civil. Doris appeared genuinely remorseful, but Emily remained guarded. They agreed to maintain limited contact, emphasizing the importance of boundaries and respect. Over time, Doris's behavior seemed to improve. She attended therapy regularly and showed a genuine effort to change. Emily and I remained cautious but allowed her to be part of our lives in a limited capacity. The relationship was fragile, but it was a start. As my health continued to improve, we focused on our dreams and aspirations. We traveled more, exploring new places, and creating beautiful memories together. Each trip was a celebration of life, a testament to our resilience and love. The shadow of the past grew dimmer as we embraced the present with gratitude and joy. Years passed, and our lives settled into a comfortable routine. Doris remained on the periphery, involved but never overstepping the boundaries we had set. The scars of the past were still there, but they no longer defined us. We had grown stronger, more compassionate, and more appreciative of the simple joys in life. Emily and I often reflected on our journey, grateful for the love and support that had carried us through the darkest times. We knew we could face anything as long as we had each other. Our story was one of perseverance, love, and the unyielding strength of the human spirit. As we looked to the future, we knew we were ready for whatever came our way, united in our love and determination to live life to the fullest. Bye-bye.